Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining today's webinar hosted by CBX Software and Cotton Council International. Now my name is Manda Huang and I'm the Marketing Director for CBX Software and also the moderator for today's session. Now before we start, we'll go through some household rules first. Now this webcast will run for approximately 40 minutes. It will be recorded and will be available for download about a few weeks after the event. All attendees will be muted during the webcast, and if you have any questions regarding the webinar, please feel free to contact me on the email address on the screen. Now I just want to quickly introduce our speaker today. Our presenter today is Carlene Malmstrom. She's the Director of China and Northeast Asia for Cotton Council International. Now, Carlene has over 30 years China-relevant experience gained from a variety of industries. And in today's session, Carlene will be sharing with us the latest global cotton information and insights on how U.S. cotton can offer advantages to the textile industry in challenging times. Now, on that note, I'm just going to pass it to Carlene and let her take it from here.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm going to start right off by introducing you to our global brand. We are Cotton USA. We've been around for a very long time. I think 60 years, Cotton Council International. Our brand has been around for now about 27 years, and we work with the whole supply chain. We say from dirt to shirt to offer advantages of high quality U.S. fiber to the whole textile supply chain. We are certainly a global organization with our headquarters in Washington, D.C., and we have offices in Memphis, of course, the heart of the traditional U.S. cotton industry. And I have many colleagues around the world representing U.S. cotton, and you can see in all of the places that are important to either cotton sourcing or the whole supply chain or parts of the supply chain. And as we all know, the supply chain is really evolving these days, so we certainly keep pace and we keep our finger on the pulse, so that one of our added values and advantages is that we have this global network to share with our partners who do use U.S. cotton to help them source better and really take advantage of these value-added partnerships that we have around the globe throughout the whole supply chain. And one of the major things we can offer is our Cotton USA Supply Chain Marketing Program. Really, we're, I was going to say, global matchmakers. And we bring, from dirt to shirt, we bring suppliers of high-quality, cotton-rich textiles together so that they can really source well. And it's been a huge success over many numbers of years that we've done this program. We continue to do it. And it's a great program, so if any of you want to participate, please do contact us, because everyone that comes away always says, wow, we actually are going to do business with the people we met, because the quality is great, the companies are great, they've already been vetted. So it's just highlighting one of our programs, one of our advantages. So I'm going to kick it right off. Funnily enough, you look at this slide, it's from April, and it's from the source, because every month the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, updates the estimates. Now this is only from a couple months ago, but in slides you will see a little later in the presentation, these numbers have already changed. So in this particular slide, although the major players don't change, the quantities, the producers will change in the volume that they're going to produce. But clearly, one of the trends that you'll see, India now has surpassed China as the largest producer of cotton in the world. And for the first time ever, that happened last year. So this is a significant change. So it's just to bring your attention to the players in the cotton world. And then the spinners. Where in the world, is the first segment of the textile industry going? So the spinners are very important. We do watch where it's spun, the volume, and who is buying the cotton, who is importing it, who is exporting it, because this really is important to understanding the dynamics of global trade. So And we can't think about the dynamics of production and trade without taking a very, very close look at what China is doing. China, over the last 10 years, and I have been with the Cotton Council for 10 years now, and the most exciting 10 years I can imagine in the industry in recent years because there have been so many ups and downs. We all have to watch China's policies because Xinjiang, a vast region in western China, now produces 2/3 of China's cotton, and it's highly subsidized, so they want to really encourage farmers to produce cotton out there. It's a great environment for doing so. Yes, production can be high, and they have to encourage a little bit more, so they do subsidize it. And the world will likely produce area planted to cotton by about 3 to 4%. That's because lower prices earlier this year and last year kind of did not incentivize many farmers to plant cotton, and so they went into alternative crops because, of course, you do have a choice when you are planting your crops and what you want to produce. The other thing about this is that, cotton is a natural fiber. It's a natural product. And, we all have to watch the weather and then when it's planted. And you look around the world, it's also quite complicated. I mean, do you use the rainwater? And, if you're in India, they're planting right now because it's the monsoons. So you look at, the planting seasons and then what the weather does during the planting seasons. And that can have a huge, huge impact on the, number one, volume of cotton that's actually harvested, and then the quality of the cotton. And, well, the good news for us in the cotton industry in general is that global consumption of cotton should exceed production for the second year in a row. And this is very, very important. And I will show you a graph. I think this is a really telltale graph here. You can follow it. And as I mentioned, in the last 10 years, we have gone through huge volatile situations, not only in the cotton industry, but in the world financial situation. As you know, China joins WTO, and then that actually bound them to certain regulations about imports. So they are bound annually for a certain amount of import quota to match with their WTO stipulations and requirements. Then you look absolutely, financial crisis. At that same time, cotton prices were speculated upon on the International Cotton Exchange, and speculators drove up the cotton prices so high that it completely turned the whole global cotton market on its head and out of whack. So, in tandem with the financial crisis, there was also a price crisis in cotton, and it was a perfect storm. So that when you go to 2010 and look at the nose dive, it meant that because the prices were so high, people started growing cotton, but then the prices tanked. So then, on top of that, China starts buying in vast quantities for their cotton reserves. And they went on a buying spree. So it was almost this out of whack situation. It got so out of balance. And, the demand was actually not from the actual market or the people using the cotton. It was just being put in China's reserves. So by the time they stopped buying a few years ago, they were holding up to close to 12 million tons, 13 million tons. Over 60% of global cotton was sitting in China's reserves. I mean, this whole situation was so out of balance. They had to do something. So that's why they started the Xinjiang program of pilot prices, so just to kind of stabilize this unsustainable situation that was created. So during this time, when it was not profitable and not even feasible to import raw fiber into China, well, what happened was, because yarn duties were much lower, yarn was going into China in lieu of raw cotton. So it was already being spun outside of China. But, China originally was a huge spinner of cotton. So that almost killed their whole spinning industry. So the whole industry, to be very honest, it suffered greatly. And, it was global chaos, really, for a few years. And now we see they're trying to rectify the situation. And you can see Vietnam was a huge winner of this. So they almost compensated. People were going to Vietnam in droves trying to spin, and they were trying to find other resources ex-China to spin. And then, of course, a lot of it still went back into China to join up with the supply chain again to make the fabric. Because we all know that China still is the largest global source of fabric in the world. Very, very good one. So this is quite an interesting phenomenon. And the big winners of the exporters of yarn became India and Pakistan. You see, now we get information in the last few months that China's spinning industry is coming back again. It's becoming more competitive. So it's almost as if it's trying to rectify itself. And you'll see later that we all love one word, and that is stability and predictability, because the last few years in our industry, since the financial crisis and the peak of the cotton prices and then the crash, everybody has not dared to go long, meaning even for, let's say, merchandisers. They've been buying contract month on month. It's almost like hand to mouth. So it was very hard to plan for our industry. And I know those of you, who are into sourcing and buying fabrics or, for brands and retailers, it's been really, really tough, to know what in the world to do. So what we try to do is give our partners the information they need to be smarter about how they source, where they source, So information is really one of our strong points, because we have access to global sources throughout the whole supply chain, not just one segment. And then you can see the China cotton reserves. Now, it was at its peak in 2014, and they're trying whatever they can to reduce it, to make it more consistent with global norms. And in 2005, they started what we call the auctions. So they started, and actually, it was not successful. It wasn't successful because people were worried that they didn't know the quality, what they were going to get, because they didn't know what was in the reserves, what year, because the longer it sits, the potential for degradation of quality is higher. So they didn't trust it. And now China has come out with new reserve policies. And this is something very interesting. So as I mentioned before, yes, China is a member of the WTO, and the requirement they have is to import annually 894,000 metric tons. But it used to be in the past, before the crises, that they were importing 4 to 5 million tons in above. So they would issue TRQ, which is tariff rate quota, to large mills so that they could get that quota to import cotton. You see, now they're not even issuing TRQ. So if you don't have TRQ now, you can't really import cotton to China. And that's also causing some problems, because if you want high quality cotton and you're in the what we call processing trade, and you do need a certain quality of cotton, it's very hard to get. So that's very, very frustrating for some mills. So we do work with them to see how we can help them source. For example, if they want high quality cotton or fiber or yarn, then we say, well, you know what? If you can't get it in China, we can tell you, if you want to use U.S. cotton, you can source it from Vietnam or Thailand or Taiwan or Indonesia. So that's the beauty of our organization, is that we really try to help those who want to use U.S. cotton to be able to use it for the benefit of the end product. So right now, 10 million tons is estimated to be in state reserves. And over a month ago, they started selling various cotton grades. And these are the new rules of the auction. So 30,000 metric tons each day for a total of 2 million tons in 2016. So they are estimating that within 3 to 5 years, they're going to try to normalize the stock situation and make it more what we call normal, and not having too much in there to disrupt the whole world stocks and trade situation. Now, the interesting thing here is, of this huge, vast quantity of state reserves, only we know 300,000 metric tons are imported cotton, and that means the high quality cotton that people want. And we know right now that it's inevitable that already those 300,000 metric tons have already been sold out of the auction. I mean, in 1 month's time, already gone. Now it's going to be interesting to see how they manage the rest of the auction with what they have in the reserves. You know, we do hear reports that, yes, they will be able to sell it, but we think it's probably inevitable they're going to have some kind of discount, you know, depending on the class. So what they're doing something very, I think is quite sensible, is they will reclass it and regrade the cotton to ease fears that it's of lower quality. You know, so people will know what they're getting no matter what the grade. So logically, they're going to try to sell the oldest cotton first. So I think we hope it's going to succeed, because if it succeeds, it will assist to ameliorate this out of balance situation we have been having over the past few years. So we do hope the auction succeeds. And the other thing is interesting. They're giving subsidies to Xinjiang growers of extra long staple cotton, and this is the higher quality cotton. And there is a reason for this, and I will show you in a couple slides later. Now, what's interesting about how they're trying to regulate their pricing, over the past few years, they pegged their price so high it was half again, or even more, above the normal so-called international market price for cotton. So even they wanted to sell it domestically, no matter what the quality was, nobody wanted to buy it because it was way, way out of whack price-wise. It was far, far too expensive. So they caused a huge kind of tsunami for themselves. And now, in the new auction situation, what they're trying to do is level out, make it sort of half-half. So half the sort of domestic pricing formula and half the international. So it's trying to bring it more in line with the global trading price for cotton. And they're really trying to make it in line with, you know, the prices that are expected on international markets. So really, there's only a tiny premium now. It's only about 3%, and this is the smallest premium to world prices in comparison with reserve buying since it began in 2011. So this is a huge, huge step in a direction to, I would say, equalize the prices of cotton prices for international trade and also within China. And actually, this is a huge step in the right direction to normalize the situation. So now we're going to talk about really the prices would have happened in the last even a couple of months. So you can see there's a little upswing here. And there are a few reasons for this. One, actually, in recent weeks or even in the last, I would say half month or month, commodities are coming back as being favorable in people's financial portfolios. And cotton certainly is a commodity. So we see some attractiveness for cotton in that sense. But we also see interest in buying. We see little blips that it's becoming, we say, more, there's a solid foundation for pricing. And that gives a lot of encouragement to the market, also to the farmers, because, you know, it has to start back with the farmers, right? So did we do the right thing by planting cotton this year, you know? And people are more confident. They're a little bit more bullish right now. So you see, number one, it's stabilized. And we really, really like this. You know, it's kind of fluctuating, but it's fluctuating on a higher level. So we're seeing just it normal around, you could say, between 63 to 70 cents purchasing. And this level is actually pretty much the level at which you could start being a little bit more optimistic for the cotton industry. And then the world balance sheet is very interesting. You look from month to month, because the USDA, this is where these charts come from. You know, we calculate month to month. This is very important also to note early in the season and then as the season progresses, because, you know, as a natural product, you know, when the harvest is going to come, and the harvest is going to start in, you know, September, and then it goes through November. But this is the peak growing season. And depending on what's happening in the fields around the world, then these figures will be regulated, and they're going to be important and significant moving forward. So as you see, we're going to start with world balance sheet. Now the beginning stocks from May to June. Now what's interesting, you see beginning stocks, they've come down a bit. Now that means, you know what, if the stocks are lower and the demand is steady or even higher, the prices can possibly be more, I would say, going a little bit higher, more attractive and more stable. Production, even because it's a little down, right, it could be up, they could be firmer. Supply is a little lower for the world. It could be even firmer prices. But again, we don't know what's going to happen in a month's time, you see. But then stocks to use ratio, if you look at that, when those get lower, down to the 40s or even the 30s, then you kind of have to worry. You say, oop, does the world have enough? But now it's very, very healthy. Everybody has enough cotton. It's just a matter of demand. And that's what also Cotton Council International does. We love to bolster demand throughout the supply chain. Now, because China is so important in this whole scenario, if you look at the world situation, less the influence of China, it actually looks very, very balanced. I mean, very, very normal. But you see, when you see that stocks to use ratio before, it was in the 80s, you see that China holds over 50% of the stock still. You see. But now it looks very normal. So they're painting a very normal picture. So for the U.S., it also looks very positive. If you remember that first slide, I started with the major players in cotton production. Just 2 months ago, in April, it was 2.8 metric tons of production in the U.S. Now, 2 months later, in June, wow, already it's increased to 3.2. So you can see there is an upward swing of production in the United States. So this is put together with the pricing. It seems quite positive for our industry. And again, depending on the weather or whatnot. But trade is healthy. Everything is, as we say, steady as she goes. Now, world cotton production, also quite interesting. India, for the last time, and for the first time, last year, again, surpassed China as the world's largest producer. United States is third. But if you look at China, if you look at the production, just the estimates from 1 month ago, it's already been reduced. Now, in the last few months, this is the first time that China, in any 1 year in recent history, will produce less than 5 million tons. This is something to note. So it's quite interesting. Again, every month, these estimates will change. And everybody has different estimates, you know. So we kind of, this is coming from the United States Department of Agriculture. Okay? So, and then consumption is very important, because where in the world is this cotton being consumed? Meaning, where is it being spun? Okay? Cotton is being spun again in China. It's it's come up, right, in the last couple of months. And in fact, in the last couple of years, you see when the spinning in 2012-13, it went down, and that's when the yarn kept coming in. So India is very healthy, Pakistan very healthy, Turkey, Bangladesh. So you see where the cotton is being consumed. Again, interesting, China is the largest consumer of cotton because they're also a very large producer of cotton. So exports, now U.S. has been the largest exporter of cotton for 10 years. And China traditionally has been our largest market. So, and you look at these numbers, fine, it's nice, it's all steady. But what's changed is China now is the third largest importer of cotton. So you see Bangladesh, where the textile garment industry is going, in Vietnam. So it's changed dramatically over the past few years, and also because of China's policy of non-issuance of the tariff rate quota. You see, so it's reduced dramatically from 2012-13 when they were still stockpiling. This is just the end when they stopped to buy for the reserves. So you really see the trend here very clearly. All right, so taking some macro things into account to put the textile industry into perspective here. China's economic slowdown, yes, GDP 6%. It has overcapacity, meaning in most of all its commodities, especially steel. You know, there's a glut of steel, there's overcapacity in housing. There's a lot, and so the point is, where is all the stuff going to go? Who's going to buy it? On the flip side, for sourcing, China remains the most competitive and the largest textile source in the world because of its efficiencies, infrastructure, and comprehensive supply chain. Nobody in the world to date has the capacity for the volume, the quality, you know, the infrastructure. You know, other countries are coming up, but for the foreseeable future, even though the wages are increasing, you know, just you do all the math, and it still comes up to China remains an extremely strong sourcing nation. Yes, and as we said, competition is coming up from other sourcing countries like Vietnam. Everybody's talking about it, and they're talking about even Africa. But you know, there are hidden costs of emerging sourcing locations because you start from ground zero. You know, you've got to build the infrastructure. You've got, I mean, even from ports, people are talking about Ethiopia. I mean, it is from scratch. So it's going to take a while for them to actually come up as a viable, you know, sourcing country to compete with China or any of the other smaller sourcing countries. And here's a very interesting new kind of phenomenon, is the e-commerce phenomenon. And China has become the largest e-commerce market in 2015. It accounts for 80% of online retail in the Asia-Pacific region, and $1 trillion value by 2019. This is really important. This is a very, very important phenomenon to watch, because most of the world consumers are not only in China, they're going to be in China, they are Chinese and they're buying online, no matter where they are in the world. You know, they're shopping everywhere, omni-channel. So this is something really, really, really to watch. And a few slides later, I'll dig into that more. Now, for China, talking about this more, because it's still a huge global player, policy-wise, you know, they are trying to move their textile industry from the east part of China to the west part of China. And we did talk about Xinjiang. You know, they're trying to also upgrade their industry, like as we have talked about in the past. Everybody knows, oh, made in China, you know, cheap and cheerful. But they're upgrading their industry. They want to be seen as a quality industry, not just a mass production industry. And the good news for quality fiber from the start, if you want a quality garment or any kind of cotton-related textile, even blends, sure, U.S. cotton fiber is a great match for this. We're a great partner for this effort. And really anybody who wants a quality item, product. And a big thing, because Xinjiang is really the hub for the cotton growing in China, they are investing into up to 20 million spindles out there for cotton consumption. So basically, if they achieve that, we don't know if they will, but that's in their plan. They will be able to consume all of the cotton that China grows just right out there in Xinjiang. So they are building 3 textile hubs out there. So we'll see how that goes. Very interesting. And then the evolving supply chain, and I'll talk a little bit more later about this. I mean, we've got to think in bigger context about creating global links through sourcing programs. That's what we're doing. Value propositions. It can't be one-dimensional. It has to be 3 or 4-dimensional. Adding more value and offering brands a package, like not just, oh, okay, this is great cotton. You say, hey, well, what can it do for me? What's new in cotton? Why is it something that the consumer wants? And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The other thing to watch is the regional trade agreements, also multidimensional, not just one-dimensional, but OBOR, One Belt, One Road, the TPP, the regional trade agreement with China, and I think a dozen other Asian countries. All of this is on the table to really look about how it impacts, because absolutely trade policies impact, as we know from the discussion on trade rate quota and China's policies. It totally can change the global sourcing world. Now, interesting phenomenon also going on is China's really investing abroad. They have sourcing, they have even spinning mills coming into the United States. They're investing greatly in other countries in the textile industry. And one example is Vietnam. And huge companies are going in there right near the Chinese border, because they also believe that in the next 10 years, even though they're a Chinese company, okay, things are made in Vietnam, whether it's spun and then brought in back into China to being made into garments, they believe that they're going to be able to market their goods back to their own market, back to China. So it's very interesting what's happening, the dynamics. And Chinese brands are really trying to get onto the global stage. They're trying to develop either by simply buying up foreign brands, or trying to make their own. That's another phenomenon. The other thing that's very important is growing environmental awareness. Yes, U.S. cotton is a natural fiber, and a lot of research that we've done actually says that the middle class, what their definition of quality is natural. And there's been a lot of sort of scandals in China recently about fake this, fake that, and tainted rice and medicines and milk. So people, it's in their overall consciousness about health and safety. And there's such a saying in Chinese called 乐活, which means lifestyle of health and sustainability. And this is in the psyche of the millennials, and it's almost like inseparable. It's a whole new generation that really care about what's in their stuff. So again, we're very well situated to also be part of that whole future scenario and a partner. And again, partnership is so important. And just middle class alone in China will be 60 million by 2025. Right now it's about 300 million, so it will double. The middle class means that people are aware. They care about what's in their stuff and about their health. Okay. Now, opportunities are really fun. So talk a little bit about what we're doing with Cotton USA. We're going right in there into brands and retailers' offices, working with designers, working with their sourcing people to say, what can we partner with you to help you offer better products at retail that your customers want? What can we do? Whether it's high performance, jump to new technologies, performance cotton. It's all about fashion and function, because we hear about the athleisure wear market. Everybody wants function, but they also want something that's fashionable, but also really good for you. They want something that they can rely on. We're also doing something very exciting. We're going to new industry segments on a large scale. We are planning to partner with large hotel chains that care that, they use U.S. cotton in their sheets, their towels. And so they can be very proud of that and put it in all of their literature and put our logo on all of their products. We can offer a whole range of products as a set to go into their hotel rooms, no matter whether it's sheets, towels, any kind of thing, even upholstery, numerous things. And then the uniform market, because we're thinking, wow, people who are comfortable going to work perform better, and so we're investigating that. And uniforms, and look how many uniforms there are from any kind of industry. That it's we say in Chinese, 无限, it's limitless. Any kind of uniforms, from even military uniforms, or what about restaurant workers, and then we go to hospitals. Look at the huge potential there, because cotton is so important. They use a lot of cotton. So this is where we're partnering, just one of some of the areas. And then we're, of course, obviously, we need to respond to what's going on with how people shop and what's attractive to them. And we know that pop-ups and customization are really, really attractive. And we also are thinking of developing our own Cotton USA brand, because we're cotton forward. Well, what's in our stuff? And people really do care about that. So that's exciting. Then, of course, the technologies, whether it's wicking, like if you're in sports and you take away the moisture management from your skin, or waterproofing, or all these high tech. Well, we have the technology, so we're going to be offering those together with the high quality fiber and the fabrics. And then transparency. We are discovering that it's really becoming more and more important. And so it's all about, holistic approach that covers the community, communications, collaboration, cooperation, harmonization of standards for sourcing and responsible manufacturing. This actually is going to be the future. And I'll say in a slide later, sadly, there are only a very few large brands and retailers that are actually taking this seriously yet. But we know that this is almost fundamental to moving forward, to doing your due diligence and your accountability. And then there's the sourcing shifts. The brands and retailers and manufacturers are investing in whole complexes, mega structures for the future of sourcing. And Vietnam and Ethiopia are actually examples of this. So this is the trends to watch. And China, because it's been sort of the manufacturing hub of the world for textiles in the last 20, 30 years, people have to watch what they're doing. And they're cleaning up their act, really, and they're trying to enforce things. So factories are being closed. It's a massive upgrade of so-called the dirty textile industry, and it really is underway in a genuine way. So we do see things actually improving. And as I said before, China is not going away as a textile hub, and Chinese firms are investing abroad to complement their production bases and also to tap the supply chain for a financial gain. Actually, it makes financial sense. So, we've got to talk about, my goodness, where are all the textiles going? So in the next, 25 years, this is the trends we see. China and India clearly are the players for, for textile consumption, in spite of what we talk about in the near term about GDP growth and the spending. The population is still growing, right? So, this is what we see, and this is from the Euromonitor International research. And again, we have to look at how they shop. And clearly, China is ahead of the game on the, using your device to shop. And it just is going to become more. There's no question. You look by 2020, 67% of Chinese are buying stuff online or on their device. And, other things really important to look at. Does actual sustainability matter? And you look at all this, and the research says yes. And the other interesting thing is, if something goes wrong with the environment, 65 of the respondents in our survey said, they hold the industry responsible for non-sustainable actions. This can wreak havoc on your brand credibility and your reputation. And then 85% say, hey, cotton is safe for the environment. So it does matter to the new shopper, if you will. And this is really the future. We have to look at the future. And these people also say They don't like chemicals. They're worried about water usage, and they worry about what in the world are we doing to the Earth's atmosphere. So a recent study by Rank a Brand found that only 8 out of 37 large global brands and retailers were found to be actively pursuing sustainable cotton sourcing. And that was kind of surprising. So if you are a retailer or in a brand, if you by 2020 are not sourcing or have not adopted sustainable sourcing programs, then you're kind of not on a path for being globally compliant or having best practices. So because we have a system-wide, a nationwide, very, very strict program in place, literally from how the cotton is grown to how it's baled, and every bale is traceable. It has a number on it. You can know literally where your stuff is, where your fiber is from. By sourcing U.S. cotton, you automatically are sourcing responsibly grown cotton. So you're way ahead of the game. So because of our nationwide standards, that sets the global benchmark for best practices, and it's all traceable, transparent, and it's science-based. So it's all third-party, measurable. So we actually take ourselves to account, and we look at ourselves. We've been doing this for 40 years, saying, we self-audit. How are we doing in reducing our impact on the environment? So it is measurable. So how is it measurable? Well, we have what's called a life cycle assessment or life cycle analysis. And this is a third-party process that any industry can adopt if they're really serious about analyzing their environmental footprint. So it doesn't matter what the product is. Okay, in our case, it's cotton. So, and we want to know the actual input of what we're using to make that product. And then its use from the consumer, and then what it took for that the life cycle of that garment or item, what went into it, what went out of it, and what was the impact on the environment, and we can actually measure it. So everything is included, and we do this for the U.S. cotton industry. And of course, we want to be transparent and measurable, so we work with and give all our numbers to such institutions as Sustainability Consortium and the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. So we again, it's all about collaboration and communication, and we report on product sustainability. Interestingly, this life cycle analysis can be used in any industry, and I'm just citing a few examples here, like the iPhone. Your iPhone, you can know exactly what went into it to produce it. And it's huge. If you look, 80% of the production total greenhouse gas emissions goes into your iPhone through the production. Consumer use is small. And then there's a tiny the recycling. So you look at these figures, and you can even go into this for the automotive industry. So again, people who are really, really serious about this, they do want to take a look at adopting the sort of self-auditing of life cycle analysis. So we do in 3 phases. So the whole agricultural product, literally from planting in the ground to the bales. You put them in cotton bales. Then the second phase starts with the textile manufacturing, when the spinning. So you go from the spinning, and then you go to the fabric, either knitting or weaving, and then you actually go into the garment. And once you go from the garment, it goes into the third phase, and it actually goes to retail. So consumer use and disposal, you can also measure that, i.e. how many times in the life of that garment did you so-called wash your jeans or your t-shirt or whatnot. It's very, very interesting to see. So interestingly enough, because water is such an issue in all industries, we really did an assessment on how much water actually does cotton use. So surprisingly, people really think, wow, cotton's such a water hog, but actually cotton production uses 3% of the world's agricultural water. So, there are lots and lots of facts available out there by third-party sources if you're interested to know the truth, know what really goes on. And then we have a program called Cotton Leads, and that is about a nationwide system of accountability and responsibly produced cotton that both the U.S. cotton industry has adopted and also the Australian cotton industry has adopted. So, and we have various partners that we work with to do our due diligence, make sure that we are measurable. And, it's great, as I say, just simply by using U.S. cotton or Australian cotton, you already are well ahead of the game to being a responsible global partner in reducing the impact on the environment. And here we can measure it again. When we say beyond agriculture, well, let's take the textile impacts and divvy them up by process. And you see for water consumption, dyeing is really big. And then you see, well, for the climate, yarn is big. And then you can see, well, how? Where am I in that process? And how can I try to reduce that impact or reduce water consumption or, reduce the energy? You see what I mean? So it's really good. And there's so much information out there. Our partner, Cotton Incorporated, has an excellent website, cottontoday.cottoninc.com, and other links, if you're interested, that really give you third-party science-based facts on all about U.S. cotton production and our footprint and what we are doing to just keep reducing it. It's called continual improvement. Best practices. It's all about best practices. So in conclusion, cotton quality is really the number one, the fundamental factor in making a good garment. Because, if you have the quality fiber, it goes into the yarn, then no matter what happens to it, okay, you can make that fundamentally high quality product from dirt to shirt, just knowing that you are starting out with a high quality fiber, high quality raw material. And the other sort of evolution of the supply chain is really fluid sourcing. Managing efficiencies, less resource waste. This is all about being aware how you can really go forward with the best practices. It's also for your pocketbook, because it turns out that efficiencies and better sourcing will definitely reduce in less costs and more profit. It just is as simple as that. It's best practices, best business practices. And the other theme here that we're really happy to see is the price stabilization. We hope, because it's been so volatile over the past few years, if there's stabilization in world markets and especially price, then the manufacturers will be more confident about their sourcing their sourcing patterns. They won't have to go from month to month. They can be confident of buying out a few months, knowing where their resources come from, so that they also can plan better. It's all about planning, not just reacting to market conditions. And we love to help people also with information to try to help them source better. And China, no matter what, will continue to be a huge player, no matter if they reduce their production of cotton, but they also will be a huge player in global decision-making on manufacturing of textiles, no matter where they are across borders. Could be in Vietnam, could be in India. They're buying up many facilities, literally from yarn to spinning, and then of course manufacturing in various sourcing locations around the world. And then brands and retailers are essential to this whole process of due diligence, best sourcing. And we know that they can have a huge impact on doing the right thing, driving supply chain synergies, looking for good upstream sourcing and sourcing areas and companies who can offer this very, very good best practices and sustainable products, so that they know that they're offering their customer the best for the environment going forward. And consumers' retail expectations are very important, because we got to be one step ahead about what they want, how they want to consume it, and where they're consuming it. And it's really more and more about experiences, and it's about individualization. It's about going to a shop. It's having that experience, unique experiences. Retail has to come ahead of the game. I know it's fast. It's going very, very quickly. And sustainability and compliance really is the new normal. If you're not following that path, then you're completely out of sync with the future of the whole global textile complex. So I'm going to end with one very important slide here. And we've all heard about the One Belt, One Road, but what does it really mean for sourcing? And you can see connecting these links both by sea and over land. It's all potential for textile sourcing along the entire routes, both routes. So people, as this evolves, I'm certainly personally going to be looking at this very closely about which areas are evolving, which sectors of the supply chain, the textile supply chain. I mean, even I think right now, in a couple weeks' time, we have a speaker here in Hong Kong talking about new sourcing from Kyrgyzstan. So, when you look at a map, geography is very important here. So you look at this map and you see Xinjiang, and that is where China's huge hub is going to be for their cotton spinning and cotton textile industry. Well, you just look at this road. It goes right to Kyrgyzstan. So they're going to connect all the way through Central Asia and then all the way through to Europe. So anything along this line to do with textiles is going to be very interesting, and we're going to see developments. And then at the same time, you look at the sea routes, Indonesia, and you look at Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, although very tiny, that's huge. That's coming up because the Chinese are building ports. And as we all know, they are going gangbusters in building infrastructure in all these countries. All you need to remember is just China infrastructure, and you will see the evolution of this within the next 10 years, and it's going to be amazing. And it will reshape the world, and it will reshape our textile sourcing world. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlene. Thank you, Carlene. That was very insightful. And I just want to thank you, everyone, for attending today's event. Now, we are very excited to have a range of different retailers, brands, consultants, and other service providers in today's session. And before I wrap up, I just want to let you know that this webinar is sponsored by CBX Software, and it is a part of our ongoing Global Sourcing Thought Leadership series. Now, the CBX Thought Leadership Education series, which includes many webinars like the one you've just attended, as well as other industry reports and white papers. It is our ongoing effort, which is focused on providing actionable insights for retailers and brands on how you can improve your global sourcing, quality, and supplier management programs. Now, if you want to find out more about the CBX Thought Leadership series, please go to the URL on the screen. Now, before we finish, I just want to take this opportunity to tell you about our next webinar. Now, the topic for our next webinar is Evolving Retail Risk based on quality programs leading to greater efficiency and improving speed to market. Okay. The presenter of this webinar is Robert Parrish, who is the Managing Director of SGS Hong Kong, and he will be providing valuable and practical advices on how to manage an effective quality program that drives efficiency and improve profitability. The webinar is scheduled for the 24th of August at 12 o'clock noon. Now, to conclude, I just want to thank you again for attending today's session. We hope you find the information useful, and we'll certainly like to have you again at our next event. If you have any questions regarding the webinar, please do not hesitate to contact either Carlene or myself on the email address on the screen. Thank you, and have a good day.